Okay, Prop the Mic PTM. We're back with episode 2 of our NFL preseason futures series of podcasts here. We got I think it might be everyone's favorite, most exciting one for me, I think, is the quarterback passing yard future props. I have a feeling you got some nice ones for us. How you feeling? How you feeling about these ones?
It's good. I mean, researching quarterbacks was certainly simpler than researching the wide receivers, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes,
Quarterbacks
very efficient.
they tend not to move very much from team to team. So
Mhm.
there's some good historicals. Like you don't have to think about the impact of other players, but it was kind of helpful doing the wide receivers first because now we have like a perspective of what each quarterback, who each quarterback is throwing to. So I
Yeah,
think that was
I
really,
found
really
that.
helpful. Yep,
Mhm.
and we're gonna talk about wide receivers a bit today too. I'm sure.
Yes, yeah. Excited for it. So let's see. Want to just get right into it?
Yeah, I like the format last time.
Mhm.
We can alternate. So why don't you kick it off?
Okay. Let me start with my favorite.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. My favorite. This is, I feel weird. I feel a little weird saying this, but I think my favorite future of all the quarterbacks is Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions. Any initial takes on this? Any gut reactions?
I think there's probably a couple people throwing up right now who are watching this, but I think they need to listen in to what the data
Okay.
says. Right?
Yes.
Everybody has a perception of Goff, but
Mhm.
but he did have a really good last year. So
He
I
really
think
did.
now he's in what is this, year 2 or year 3?
This is year two.
Year 2, year 3, I think.
Year 3.
Yeah, year 3.
No, year 2.
Okay.
Year 2.
Well,
Okay.
I'll confirm
Let's
that
confirm
as.
that. All right. Let me run down the logic for this one here. So his line on the season is 3,875 yards. He did have 4,438 yards last season. He cleared his that line of 3,875 by 15%. That was the number one biggest delta out of all the starting QBs that we looked at here. So that's promising from the get-go right there. And he did have those 4,438 yards, 29 TDs, and 7 interceptions were his best season since 2018. So best season in 4 years. I believe it was his first season, right, in Detroit?
No, it's the second. He played 14 games in 2021, and I think he played all 17 in 2022.
Oh, okay.
So
all right. So now it's his third year.
yeah, which I think only strengthens the argument.
Yeah.
I think having another year in Detroit, I think only positions him better for a good year today. So
yeah, same regime too. It hasn't changed in terms of coaching and whatnot. So more familiarity. So let's run down the rest of the stuff here. Lions have the 11th easiest schedule this season. So I think that one helpful in terms of passing yards. This is an interesting scheduling quirk. They play 3 Thursday night games, which gives them 3, if you want to call them mini buys. You get this week and a half. It's not nothing. You know what I mean? It's definitely helpful, especially later in the season. They still have their regular buy plus these 3 little mini buys. I like that for rest here. Going into the weeds here a bit. Lions had the 6th best offense overall by expected points added per play. So I found that a bit surprising. They, if you look at just EPA per dropback, so on passing plays, they were 3rd in the NFL last season in EPA per dropback. Pretty impressive. Where it gets more impressive is the final 10 games of the season. So in the final 10 games of the season, that was after they traded TJ Hawkinson to the Vikings.
right.
They kind of switched up their schemes a bit. They deployed a lot more of these two running back sets, and they got much better over those last 10 games. They went 8-2. Goff went from throwing 40% of his passes, 12 plus yards, to only 24% of his passes, 12 plus yards. What did that mean? He cut down on the interceptions. He only had 1 interception over his final 8 games. Looking at these, I mentioned it on the receivers podcast. So we look at the slope on these trend lines for production in terms of things like, especially for quarterbacks. I looked at air yards per target, yardage overall, things like that. So he had the strongest upward passing trend over the last 10 weeks in terms of yardage gained out of any quarterback in the league. He had the 5th highest adjusted average air yards per target. So I like that stat because it's how far are they throwing the ball down the field. When we knocked out I knocked out the last 2 games and the first 2 games of the season, got just a nice chunk of those middle games, and he was the 5th highest. It didn't change much if you factored in those other games either, so it wasn't like we're not playing with the numbers here. He had a positive trend in air yards per target over every season segment. This is kind of what I was just alluding to. You looked at game weeks 1 through 16, it was positive. Weeks 1 through 18 was positive. If you look at like first half, second half, no matter where you look, positive trend upwards. And here we go. I'm estimating that he'll average 262 yards per game this season. I think that's a little conservative. If he does that, he'll be within 5% of his line in 14 games. So I like that buffer there. Give you a couple games, and he almost clears it in 14 games at a conservative yardage per game. So that's my Jared Goff spiel. Did I convince you one way or the other? Or
yeah, no, looking at the data, I was already pretty convinced even before you went through that. Well, everything you just said just further got me excited about it. And the one thing you didn't mention is it's aligned with, I think your first pick on the wide receiver show was one of his guys, right? St. Brown. So so those are nice. I wonder if you can even parlay those together since they're so highly correlated. I would look into that for sure.
Good call out. I don't know if they'll let you do that for these season long ones, but
I don't know. I'm definitely looking at that right after this, though.
Nice.
All right, so good. So Jared Goff in his third season off the board. I didn't have him, so. So I think in general, I'll talk about before I go into my first pick. I'll talk about my general approach. So first, pulled up props.cash, right? App. Jumped into the kind of the trends there as a starting place, and I found guys that were consistently delivering year over year, or guys that were consistently undelivering, right? So this guy I think is solid. This is the one that popped out first for me. Not a surprise quarterback, not a guy who I'm like scraping the bottom of the barrel. This is the top quarterback in the league. We've got Justin Herbert, over 4,425 yards, 0.5 yards, right? So this is a great story here. First thing, this is fourth year in the league. So first year in the league was 2020. As a rookie, put up 4,336 yards. So just missed this line as a rookie, only playing 15 games, right? Because it was a shorter season then. Had 10 interceptions. 21, he put up 5,014 yards in 17 games. Had a lot of picks that year, had 15 picks. But again, that's still relatively low given the volume of passing yards. And then last year, just dealing with all sorts of issues. He had a rib issue that happened early in the season that was like nagging, I think, for half the year. And then later in the season, he had a shoulder issue that actually required surgery in the offseason. So dealing with two fairly significant injuries for a quarterback. Didn't miss a game, though. So I love how tough the guy is. And he still got 4,739 yards in 17 games played. So I like this play a lot. He's cleared in 2 out of the 3 years. And the 1 year he didn't clear was his rookie year where he had one less game to get there. So that's where I started. All right. A few other stats similar to you. I look at kind of how the second half compared to the first half. Second half, he was 7% higher in terms of yards per game than the first half of the season. Give you one other stat that I loved. It's really around attempts, right? So he leads the league in attempts per game, right? So in order to complete a pass, you have to throw a pass, right? And he throws the most passes per game at 41.1. Most of these quarterbacks are in the mid to low 30s. So he's just putting up volume and volume and volume. Not only is he throwing a lot, but he also had the third highest completion in the league at 68.2%. And that was the highest in his career compared to the prior 2 years where he was closer to 66%.
Nice
so
trend.
He's throwing a lot and completing a lot. And the last point I'll raise about him is just who he was throwing to. So he's got a great receiving core with his 3 starters this year are likely to be Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Quentin Johnson. Quentin Johnson's a rookie, but one of the top rookies drafted this year. So he's got some upside. Mike Williams, constantly dealing with injury, but when he's out there, he's dangerous. He only played 14 games last year. And Keenan Allen actually could be a top 5 receiver in the league if he ever stays on the field. He only played 11 games last year. So if those guys can stay healthy, you're looking at another 5,000 plus yard season for this guy.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. I like him too. I was staying away. I think guys like him and Mahomes, obviously, great picks. I think the high totals might scare some people off, but I think the underlying data is there to support it. And I think that's a good pick. I was trying to target guys, on the lower end, not the upper tier. So I didn't, not that that's what made me stay away from him, but I just ended up on a couple of those, but I love that pick.
Yeah, and I also like the division that he's in. I think being in the AFC West is a super competitive division. So you got the Chiefs, you got the Raiders, you got the Broncos, right? All of those teams are going to be vying for the top seed there. So I think that's going to make all these games, week 16, week 17, plus are going to be important. So I like that. All right, cool. Back to you, man.
All right. I know this one's going to be scary for you, but I think it's my second favorite pick. Tua. What do we think? He's scary, right?
I mean, he shouldn't even be playing in the league after what happened to him last year. So
it's not funny, but yeah.
No, I don't even say that lightly. I just mean he is literally like one big hit away from being done. So that always scares me because he needs to basically stay healthy. But on the flip side, as you'll probably mention in a minute, he's got probably the best receiving core in the league. So so I understand the appeal, and I would say his line. What is his line?
3,800.
Yeah, so that's pretty low for a quarterback with the best receiving core in the league. So so let's hear what you got, Els.
All right. So just to kind of see where we left off onto his career so far, he was 8-1 in his first 9 starts. Miami was 8-1 in his first 9 starts. The only loss was the game he left with a concussion. So he got off to an incredible start to the season. So obviously Miami has a lot of desire to keep him in there and have him play. So one stat that I saw that was pretty interesting, I thought, was so in his first season in 2021, he was ranked number 1 among quarterbacks in aggressiveness, meaning that he threw into tight coverage more so than any other quarterback in the league. Fast forward to last season, 2022, he ranked dead last, 32 out of 32 in aggressiveness, meaning he wasn't forcing the ball. He was delivering the ball, with space. And what is that a result of? Most likely due to greater receiver separation. And you alluded to the fact that he has probably the best 1-2 combo of receivers in the league. I think before I get into the receivers a bit here, it is important to note Chance Tyreek Hill does miss some time. He's got some I don't know. He's usually involved in some things off the field. So maybe if he's not playing in all the games, maybe a little bit of regression there. But just wanted to point that out. But here's what happened when he made this big leap forward last season. He went from 27th in yards per attempt in 2021 to number 1 last season in yards per attempt. He had so like I mentioned, he was throwing to Hill and Waddle. Hill last season, Tyreek Hill, who's had monster seasons from Pat Mahomes, had a career high receiving yardage in 2022, more so than any season with Pat Mahomes throwing him the ball. He was number 1 in yards per route run and number 1 in yards per team pass attempt. So just dominating. And then his partner on the other side there, Jalen Waddle, was number 1 overall of all receivers in yards per catch last season at 18.1 yards per catch. So he has just, he doesn't have anybody more explosive really that he could throw the ball to. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff can happen even after they catch the ball with those two, which are all yards for Tua here. He was number 1 overall in air yards per target this season at I think it was almost 10 air yards per target. Really nice. What else? What else is going to convince you on Tua here? This was interesting. All right. So not only did his air yardage increase significantly from 21 to 22, but Miami's yards after the catch increased too. Why is that interesting? It's interesting because it's incredible for both of those two things to increase because they're inversely correlated. You don't throw more down the field and then get more yards after that. Usually, you're throwing shorter and then they get more yards after a shorter throw. So the fact that both increased, I thought was pretty incredible. I have him estimated at 270 yards per game this season. If that holds, he will be within 1%, almost hitting his 3,800 yard total in game 14. That was the number 2 overall fastest to get to his total if his estimated yards per game holds. So let's ride with Tua. Hopefully he stays on the field for at least 14, 15 games this season.
Yeah, you had me at Tyreek Hill.
That's all you needed.
That's all I needed. I'm a big Tyreek Hill fan on the field. So he can do some really amazing things, both of those receivers. So as long as he gets 15, 16 games, I think he's got this easily. It's just the health. That's it. But I think it's a good play. Yeah. Good value. All right. I'm going to spend 30 seconds on my next pick because this man requires no introduction. Everybody knows him. You already talked about him. My favorite player in the league, Pat Mahomes. Total line is 4650.5. Again, make sure you shop around. Huge variability between DraftKings, FanDuel, Caesars. We put out all the lines a couple days ago on X, so you can see where the best value is. But there's like a couple hundred yards difference between each site. Real quick, rookie season, he put up 4,031 yards. That was with 14 games played. Next year, 4740, so he cleared it in 2020 in only 15 games. 2021, 4839, cleared it by 200 plus in 17 games. And then last year, 5,250 yards, cleared it by 600 yards in 17 games played. So despite like the perception that he's hurt a lot, he actually isn't. He was hurt in the playoffs, but he played the full regular season. And he still played. Wide receiver core, what do we got? We got Valdez Scantling is back again this year. Tony is back again, who only was with the team for the back half of the season. Yep. And they're kind of giving Sky Moore, who was a rookie, I believe, last year, a chance to enter the starting lineup. And of course, his best receiver is not even a receiver. It's Travis Kelce at the tight end position. So he's got a good core there. It doesn't really matter who he's got. He's going to throw the ball a lot. He's got the second most attempts in the league behind Herbert at 38.1. Just think about back to that Herbert play. Herbert's at 41.1. Mahomes, who's considered the best quarterback in the league, is 38.1. So just emphasizing the value again for Herbert there. Seventh highest completion rate. So he does throw the ball away a lot. He's at 67.1%, which was actually his career best last year. And my favorite stat to conclude this one, he leads the league in 300-plus yard games for quarterbacks with 10 games over 300. So what's 10 times 300, Thomas?
10 times 300 is 3,000.
All right, so that leaves us only needing 1,650 more to clear this one. I think he also led the league in 400-plus yard games with 6. So, right, so this guy's a beast. He'll be healthy. He'll get 5,000-plus yards. It's a big line. It's the largest line out of any quarterback, but play it with confidence. He's going to be bombing away again this year.
Yeah. You didn't even need to say much more, I think. Though it is good to point out, like, the high line, like you just said, will probably scare people off. Like, I'm super confident in this line. I mean, the dude, like, he crushed it last season, like you said. He's third on my list here of air yards per target, behind Tua and Mr. Jimmy G. We don't need to spend too much more time. This is a slam dunk.
All right, cool. So I'm going to throw you a curveball here. Give me an underplay. Do you have an underplay?
I do have one underplay.
All right, so you do one under, I'll do one under.
Okay. My under is this guy had a change of scenery, has spent his entire career with the Raiders, now is quarterbacking the New Orleans Saints. That's Derek Carr. His line's 35.50. I just think he's on the downward trend. He's been in the league like 10 years now, I think 9-10 years, something like that. There's been a nice downward trend, an alarming downward trend over the past few seasons with his play. Let me run through a couple of them. EPA. Expected points added has declined in each of the past 4 seasons, so steady decline down. He's on the back end of his career here. He had the lowest yards per attempt and yards per game since 2017. So had his worst season in 5 years. Had a 60.8 completion percentage, which was the lowest he's ever had since his rookie season. He had his career worst interception rate last season. Keep in mind, he was playing with Devontae Adams as his number one receiver.
Exactly. Who was one of the best receivers in the league last year and really every year. So you're not getting better than that in New Orleans. So.
No, and granted, Waller was hurt for a good portion of it. Renfro was hurt for a good portion of it, but still, I mean, these are all not good signs. He had a negative. His trend on passing yardage was negative across any season segment that I looked at. His air yards per target trend was also significantly negative across any season segment that you wanted to look at. He had the 5th worst air yards per target overall. And then just looking at the New Orleans team, so Jameis Winston is back. He signed a 1-year contract. He's played for New Orleans the last 2 seasons. He has a 6-4 record with New Orleans over the last 2 seasons. I think the team there, they like him as a backup. All that being said, is what I'm saying is Carr gets off to a bad start. They're not they're not locked in on him. They're not going to keep they're not going to ride or die with Derek Carr here. They have Winston to fall back on. They got some Taysom Hill action, that can steal some yardage from him. So between those two things and all the other negative trends, let's fade Derek Carr here.
Yeah, I'm looking. They did give. I'm looking at his contract. What did he get from the Saints? He signed a 4-year contract worth it looks like $150 million with 100 guaranteed. So he is. It's not like they're testing him out. They do plan to make him the quarterback for the next couple of years. But you're right, Jameis Winston has kind of been there for a while, and if he starts to degrade and not hit the numbers, I could see Winston getting some reps too. So I like that play. Derek Carr's just had like one of those tragic careers. Like, you almost feel bad for the guy. So this could be it. This like is set up for like a turnaround season, storybook season. But I'm not sure he's got it in him. I think, like you said, he's kind of on the back end of his career. So I like
his receiving core. Their receivers were pretty efficient last year, I believe. But like, who was your biggest fade in the receivers?
Thomas,
right?
Yeah. And then Olave is a good receiver, but he hasn't proven himself, for long enough to really get too excited. So, all right, cool.
Give me your fade.
My fade, Lamar Jackson, Baltimore. So here's an example of why you got to shop around. So DK has this at 3,500.5, and FanDuel has this at 3,350.5. Right, so you're talking about an extra 150 yards, which is almost like a game for Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
So I like under here, under 3,500.5. I think this is his 6th season in the league. We'll ignore his first season. He only had 1,200 yards. Second season, 3,100 yards. Third season, 2,700 yards. Fourth season, 2,800 yards. And fifth season, 2,200 yards. The last 2 years, he's only played 12 games in each season, right?
Yeah.
He needs to average 206 yards to surpass this, right? Which is pretty low for a starting quarterback. But even in the 11 games that he played last year, when he was healthy, he only averaged 203 yards.
Yeah.
Right, so he really doesn't throw the ball that much. Wide receivers is pretty ugly there. He's got Bateman, who's coming back from injury, but did look good at the start of the year, pretty explosive. He's got OBJ coming off of a season-long injury, and then he's got a rookie in Zay Flower, who we don't know what we get there. So he doesn't have a particularly strong receiving crew.
Mark Andrews too.
Mark Andrews, tight end, he is one of the better tight ends in the league.
Yeah.
This is the only guy I actually looked up injury history on years back. Knee sprain, a concussion, a sprained back, a sprained ankle, and a PCL knee sprain. Those are all things that have happened in the last 3 years to this guy. He gets hit a lot. He's a mobile quarterback. He doesn't have the durability to make it through a full season, I don't believe. He's got his $260 million 5-year deal that he was looking for. 135 is already guaranteed. So I don't know. This spells under to me. He hasn't done it in his entire career. What makes us think he's going to get there now?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I agree. I mean, he was one, like the trend lines on him across all the different metrics we looked at were like negative across the board. It lined up for a fade. I don't know. I think at that high yardage total, it's probably good. He scares me a little bit. I don't know. I don't want to bet against Lamar Jackson. I don't know. I just feel like, especially after last season, I don't know. I kind of have a feeling he might have a little bounce back here, but all the data just points to everything you just said, that this is a
yeah. I
absolutely.
mean, what really sold me was the fact that the 11 games that he played before he got injured, he was averaging 203 yards.
Yeah.
Right? He needs 206, and he needs to play the entire season at 206 to surpass this. So even if he had played a full year, he wouldn't have got there last year. So I think he's going to continue to run the ball. That's the best part of his game, and he'll go under again and probably only play 12 games. So
I have him estimated at 191 yards per game.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, all right, cool. How about one more deep dive for each of us?
I actually don't have. I just have like 3 leans that I'll
Yeah,
if you have a deep dive, why don't you do yours, and then I'll do the 3 leans.
Oh boy, who to choose? You know what? I'll give you the rest of my guys as leans. It's hard to choose. All right, I'm gonna go with Trevor Lawrence.
That was who I was hoping you'd say.
4,025 yards is his line. Again, shop it around because you can get it as low as 3,975. I didn't find which book that was from, but definitely some value out there. Third season in the league. First one was a dumpster fire. He just had a terrible coaching situation there, and he still put up 3,641 yards. 22, he crossed his line for this year, and he had 4,113. What was most encouraging is his second half was 19% better average yards per game than his first half. So you're talking about a young guy who's still getting used to the league, who is basically getting better and better every half season, which tells me he's going to be even better this year. He's got, like we said on the receiver pod, he's got a good core with Ridley coming back, Zay Jones, Kirk, your guy Engram at the tight end position. He played 17 games both seasons, so he's durable. He's a big quarterback. completion rate last year was 66.3%. That's pretty good for a second-year quarterback. And his attempts are low at 34.4, but I think he will he'll rise those up this year. So I think he's a good play. I think he's good for 41, 42, 4,300 yards. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it. Lots of positive upward trends on his stats when you do a little bit deeper dive here. Yeah, I think it's the kind of, the third year big step forward. I think it's definitely happening here for Lawrence. So yeah, I like that. That was one of my that wasn't one of the leans I was going to get to here, but yeah, definitely a guy I'm targeting. All right, want to hear mine?
Yeah, give me the leans.
All right, I like Jalen Hurts over 36.25. I thought this was so. Just real quick. I think they were ranked. Warren Sharp had them ranked having the best offensive line in the league. That always cannot hurt your quarterback for passing. He was number 3 in yards per attempt last season, number 4 in air yards per attempt. So that's benefits those racking up those passing yards. The Eagles, this was interesting. So the Eagles had the easiest schedule in 2022, right? So what does that mean? In terms of 2023, I think what that means is that the passing game has significant upside here because they're going to be more pressed than they were in 2022, playing against stronger teams. And also what that means is that because they had such an easy schedule, Hurts, like the Eagles really, if you look at their games last season, they held onto the ball in the second half. Like basically all his damage was done in the first half in terms of passing in the first half of last season. So he got there. He cleared this line by 75 yards last season, basically more or less in the first 2 quarters of the games he played. So I don't think, I think they're going to be in a lot closer games this season, forcing him to pass the ball more. He got there in this scenario last season. I think it's going to be even easier for him to get there this season.
Yeah, I like that. I don't have data to support this, but I'm sure it would if we looked it up. I think he's really good at extending drives too. They're aggressive. They go, they're really good at converting third downs. They even go for it on fourth down. And that's important, right? When you're trying to rack up yards throughout the season, you got to have the ball in your hands. So I think it's a good play. I think he's a young quarterback. And I think he's only going to get better this year compared to last year.
Yeah. Sorry, let me just finish up with one more. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Jimmy G, I think, is in another nice spot here. He was number 2 in air yards per target. And not only was he number 2, but he had a big positive trend upwards. Again, in any segment that you dice up the season in, he was improving upwards in his, or increasing his air yards per target, which I like. He has a nice offensive line. So he's obviously not with the 49ers anymore. He's with the Raiders now. His line, let's get through the important stuff here. His line is 3,300 yards. So with the Raiders, they actually have a pretty good offensive line. All 5 starters from last season are returning. Those 5 starters helped Josh Jacobs win the rushing title last season. So he's got a nice offensive line now in front of him. That line was actually ranked 25th going into last season and finished the season as the 10th overall best offensive line. So I like that. I'm not going to dig into it too much more. But my one cause for concern is just, the change from going from Kyle Shanahan to now Josh McDaniels as his head coach. Like McDaniels is not a very good coach. And that gives me a little bit cause for concern, which is kind of why this is a lean more than a strong play. But if he was still in San Francisco, based on all the data from last season, this would be a home run.
Yeah, you love playing with fire, man. You're going for all the injured guys, huh?
Yes.
But he's a very good quarterback. If he can stay on the field, he'll utilize Davante Adams even better than Carr did.
Yep.
It'll be interesting. I'm excited to see what that team does. I hope they lose a lot since I like the Chiefs. Yeah. But Jimmy G, let's see if he can go over. All right, cool. I like those picks. Again, as leans, definitely we're going to be playing the other ones more. 2 quick ones for me. I'll keep it very high level. Mac Jones at 3,025.5 yards. So very low line. Rookie year, he put up 3,800 yards. And last year, he put up 2,997. So the reason why he wasn't a play is because, like I said, my first criteria was consistency. Went up on props.cash, saw that he had a big red for last year. But he did have averaged 232 yards per game in the last 8 weeks of the season, which is pretty good. And if he does that, same trajectory for 13 games in this season, he'll clear it. So it basically gives him, 4 games of buffer to play with. Receiving core is kind of questionable. He's got Devontae Parker, Tyquan Thornton, and Juju Smith-Schuster over there in New England. So again, lean, but I think 3,000 yards is probably a little too low for him. Okay.
Agreed. Mm-hmm.
And then last one, we save controversy for the end. Dak Prescott, 3,875.5 yards on FanDuel. Caesar and DK have it at 4,000, over 4,000. So again, FanDuel's got some real value here. Remember when we were doing the NBA season, we did every other AD, right?
Every other AD. Was this every other year for Dak?
This is every other Dak, right? So in 2019, he put 4,900 yards.
Yeah.
18, he only played 5 games, but put up 1,856 yards, which is an average of 371 yards per game. 21, he had a really good season, 4,449 yards in 16 games. That's an average of 278. And then 22, last year, he only played 12 games and only finished with 2,860. So basically, he has to average about 260 yards a game or more to get there. I think it's a small lean, but I just really wanted to see if you were on his over or under, because I know more people are going to be on his under than his over, I think.
He's he's kind of just a stay away for me. His the data that I looked at least was kind of up and down, kind of like, which kind of leads to see that he's consistent. There's no like big positive trends, no big negative trends. He's kind of, but you see the same sort of thing with guys like Mahomes, right? He doesn't have a big upward trend or negative trend. He's just kind of like just always consistently good, So that's kind of what I saw from Dak. I don't know. I don't love him. It's probably maybe just my own bias here, probably.
Yeah. You either love Dak or you hate Dak. I might be the only guy who's kind of neutral on him.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it's a stay away as well. But I wanted to bring it up because this is, if he follows the pattern of his career, this will be an up year where he gets 4,000 plus yards. But again, I personally stayed away from guys who had injuries. I looked at guys who played 16, 17 games over the last couple of years. He doesn't meet that criteria, so he's out for me. But I just wanted to have some fun and talk about Dak.
All right, I got one more.
Okay,
one more. This one is I'm going out on a limb here. This is just the lean. You see my hat here. This is not for the Cleveland Guardians. This is for the Cincinnati Bearcats. They have a second-year former quarterback in the league, quarterback in the Atlanta Falcons, and Desmond Ridder. The guy only played 4 games after they benched Mariota at the end of the season, but got better in every single game. The trends from game 1 to game 4 of his NFL career was pretty unbelievable. He did not face the best competition. I think it was like Arizona, Tampa Bay, New Orleans. So you take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. But his line's only 2,500 yards. So it's super low. He's got some weapons there, especially if Kyle Pitts finally puts things together. He's got a really explosive tight end there. So I just wanted to call that out, give a little love to my Cincinnati Bearcats on a nice low line. Now this guy's got a full season. They drafted him in the 3rd round last year, or before the start of last season. So he's their guy, at least for the the next couple seasons, I would imagine. So let's get behind Desmond Ridder here. Go Bearcats.
I mean, I love the loyalty. I don't know anything about this guy, so I'm laying off. I would say if you want to have loyalty to the Bearcats, then go with Mahomes because he's throwing to Kelsey.
There you go. There you go. Very
All
nice.
right, cool. Very nice.
Right. I think that does it. We're gonna we'll put a little summary together of these. We're not sure exactly how we're gonna do it yet, but we're gonna get some of these up on Twitter, whether it's a prize pick lineup or something. So stay tuned. Be on the lookout for that, and we'll be back with some WNBA action tomorrow. Let's make some money.